Two South Londoners who conquered Mount Everest in May are being honoured tonight.
Neil Laughton was on the Everest climb with Bear 2 years ago.
Well, explorers through the years have recreated the trip that Scott made, and a team of adventurers, including former SAS officer Neil Laughton, are there now.
A British team led by Neil Laughton have just returned from retracing Shackleton's steps.
Party organiser Neil Laughton is already living the dream.
Those of you who've been sitting in his seminar, I think have been blown away by it. So a little bit more about flying a car from Europe to Africa.
If a bloke like me, I struggled, had many, many failures, if I can achieve a few successes in life, honestly, anyone can.
Hello and welcome back to Rocket Pod. On today's show, we're delighted to have Neil Laughton join us. Neil is a successful entrepreneur and author of The Adventureholic. This is a new book that he's published. Bear Grylls describes Neil in the foreword as standing on the shoulder of a giant. Neil brings a lot of fun and excitement to any situation. Very refreshing, love his energy. And I hope by the end of this conversation we'll all have some tools to infuse a bit more excitement and adventure into our daily lives. Neil really is the adventurer. He lives it, he breathes it, and I think a lot of his life choices are outrageously cool, and we're delighted to have him on the show. Welcome, Neil. Neil, welcome back to Rocket Pod.
James, thanks for having me back.
So, it's really nice that you've come back to join us. You're an amazing sport. I think for our listeners out there that the first recording we did with Neil was very much about his accomplishments. But I think today we're just going to be learning a bit more about Neil and what makes Neil tick. He's just written a book called Adventureholic, which is an absolutely fantastic book. So we can, dig into that a little bit perhaps later. But I think one of the key reasons why we love Neil and why we have him back on Rocket Pod is that he has a great sense of fun, and he just gets out there and does it. And I think so many of us are in our jobs or just going through the motions, in an office job or whatever, and probably lack a bit of adventure. So Neil, what are you up to now?
So as a part-time adventurer and entrepreneur, I spend my time really, I think, spread between three things: trying to scrape enough money to survive, pay the mortgage, do all the things that most of your listeners will be familiar with. And I do that in a variety of ways. I run sort of three small businesses at the moment. I used to run a couple of big ones, but today, as I approach the latter quarter of my existence on the planet, there's kind of startup, small scale businesses. One is a sort of an L&D, learning and development / entrepreneurial experiential company that helps people spend a bit more time connecting with nature, trying to be a better CEO, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And possibly take a group of company executives into a wood to help them communicate better back at the workplace.
Actually, and I can attest to that as well, because I went to your Fire and Ice weekend, and Neil had me jump into a 1/2 degree ice tub, doing the Wim Hof thing, and then next thing we knew it, we were walking across hot coals, and it was certainly good fireside chat, and just to be kind of thrown in and immersed in a completely different environment to what we're used to, it was amazing. So thank you for putting that together.
Sure. Well, that's a good example of bringing people together that haven't perhaps met before, some people who knew each other, but pushing the boundaries. And I think it comes to a bit of my philosophy of life in that, we humans, we love challenge. We like to know what's the view like from the top of the mountain, what the horizon's going to be at the end of that ocean view, etc. And I think challenge is really important for us as a human species. The second thing is, collaboration, communication, and community. Coming together, as groups of people and interacting, just like they used to been doing for, generations and generations, thousands of years around that campfire, proverbial, which you experienced in the wood a a little while ago.
golden.
And then, as you alluded to at the start, I think, we're only on the planet for a relatively short space of time in the grand scheme of things. And, why do it just being focused on making money or making carpets or whatever? It's all about maximizing the fun element, I think, just enjoying one's time, doing good and having a bit of fun at the same time. So, yeah, I'm doing some 3 different businesses. My own Laughton & Co. experiential development. I run the Penny Farthing Club, which is everything to do with the old-fashioned Victorian bicycles, from charity rides to bicycle polo on penny farthings to world records. And then finally, a slightly more serious business back into the sort of property development game. As I think you may have seen, I'm trying to launch a new concept to help people who have their homes flooded every 10 years. Concept of floating homes. Wow. And of course, my passion in life is adventure, and not only organising, leading, but actually participating and going on adventurous expeditions around the world by land, sea and air.
Yeah, I think there's a difference between having an adventurous spirit and actually an adventurous mindset. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, so I've coined the Adventureholic. That's me, but I think it's wider than that. Lots and lots of people can be adventureholics, because adventure's great. It's about discovering, a journey of discovery. It's about, as the Oxford Dictionary says, an adventure is an unusual, exciting, or daring experience, or a combination of all 3. And for me, being adventurous is all about having the fun, being with good people, and rising to a challenge, as mentioned before. In terms of an adventurous mindset, yes, I think you do need an adventurous mindset to be adventurous and to be successful generally in life. And there are lots of parameters for success, of course. But for me, if you want challenge, if you want community, and you want success and have fun in life, with some adventure, then you need to have an adventurous mindset. And what is that? I think there are probably 6 crucial ingredients, characteristics, traits of an adventurous mindset. The first couple are curiosity. I think you have to have an open mind, to open your eyes to possibilities, to new environments, not get stuck in a routine, Friday night pub, Saturday golf. You've got to have a variety of experiences and want to be curious and open your eyes to new opportunities. And the second is, once you've realised something that you want to achieve and do, and have an ambitious goal, audacious, aspirational dream, you've got to have the courage to take the first step. So curiosity and courage are the first 2 ingredients of an adventurous mindset. For me, the next 2 are, and everyone can do this, it's just applying oneself with energy and enthusiasm. Okay. So 2 C's and 2 E's, easy to remember. Energy, you just got to work hard. Put your mind to it and get on with it with energy, and obviously enthusiasm. It speaks for itself. Be optimistic. Don't be pessimistic. Yes, there are always going to be problems, difficulties, and obstacles in the road, but find a way. And that leads to the last 2, which are R's. Easy to remember. Resourcefulness. Find ways to solve those problems. Be a little bit innovative and ingenious and cunning. Whatever you need to do to rise above and get round the difficulties and the naysayers. There's always lots of people who will tell you can't do it, you shouldn't do this, too expensive, you can't afford it, blah blah blah. Sod that. That's just bullshit. Resourcefulness to overcome the difficulties. And then resilience. And resilience is all about just getting back up again. You get knocked down, you get a sideways blow, and you have to get back up and try again.
So it's an interesting message. It's almost like, would you agree that everyone has agency, as far as they've got the ability to actually do something and maybe try something new? And I guess there's different levels of, of course, you've summited Everest, you've paddled in the Bering Straits, you've flown a car to Timbuktu, you've done, and actually this is all in your book, all your adventures. For folks that haven't done anything adventurous, what would you say to them as far as?
Well, start small. Don't make Everest your first mountain or the Bering Sea your first canoe ride. My very first adventurous expedition experience that I remember was age 13, and I persuaded a good school friend, and I think it was in the summer holiday. I got hold of a canoe, and two of us paddled a Canadian canoe for 3 days and 2 nights, camping on the side of the riverbed. Wow. Age 13, and small little steps, and from that led to bigger and greater and more daring and audacious missions.
Yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, and so to encourage people to be adventurous, there's all sorts of adventure. I was doing a little talk the other day and gave a few examples of how you could be adventurous. Like, you don't have to climb Everest. There are 1,008 mountains registered around the world. Most of them aren't climbed, have never been climbed. And they're not as tall and dangerous as Everest and K2 and the other big peaks. So go and climb a small mountain. There's plenty in the UK if listeners are in the UK. Absolutely magnificent. The 270 odd Munros, for example. Fabulous peaks. Go and climb a mountain with your loved one, and that will start your adventurous career.
So, Neil, the importance of cultivating an adventurous mindset is obviously, it speaks for itself how important it is, but in today's age, how important is that? Well,
I see my teenage kids absolutely glued to their phones, and I think it's a perennial problem now that young people are just, they're not looking up. My son, 16-year-old, I'm sure he's going to have a bad neck problem in later life. He literally his head is bowed 23 hours in the day or wherever. Maybe not when he's asleep, but you know what I mean? It's slightly concerning as a dad. I just wish journeys to school in the car, they're not looking out the window. There's not much I can do to try and persuade them at the moment. They're so fixated on their TikTok and YouTube Zooming and all the rest of it. I despair a little bit. So, I do try and encourage them, and I encourage everybody just to look up. And, there's a couple of people have messaged me about a comment I made in the book recently about, I was on a flight to somewhere remote, and, there was a sort of stern-looking gentleman to my left. And, ordinarily I could have just ignored him, put my head in my magazines or my phone. But I didn't. I engaged him, and we got on, struck a conversation, had a few things in common. That gentleman ended up as my greatest ever sponsor of, some of the bigger and more expensive expeditions, just by having a conversation, looking up from your phone and your magazines or your book and engaging with somebody, another human. And you just never know who you're sat next to unless you look up and engage.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you use the tube as an example too. Everyone sits on the tube looking at their phones or heads down, but you don't know who you're standing next to. So it's almost like that's a very easy thing to just look around you. Yeah, it could be as simple as that.
And people have almost lost the ability to look people in the eye, and it's a little disconcerting. I spend train journeys and tube journeys and the occasional bus journeys, just looking around, seeing who wants to engage with me. And if it's a bit awkward, you just do a quick smile and you move away. You go on to something else.
Yeah,
I think as well it highlights what might be uncomfortable. Makes it's easier later. You do the hard thing now, and it might be that you engage someone that a complete stranger, but who knows? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? They just ignore you. But actually the upside is you do that 10 times and you're gonna get a winner.
Yeah. So you touched upon your kids, and some easier things that you can do to start going on adventures. Do you have any adventures that you go on with your kids? Maybe some parents now can start doing with their kids to help encourage them.
Yeah, I try and take my parental duties as seriously as possible. It's great now that they're young adults, teenagers. They have their own ways of aspirations and goals and characters, and one wouldn't want to impose one's own lifestyle. My slightly dodgy adventurous entrepreneurial lifestyle may not be suitable for my children, and I wouldn't
it's
dream of
different.
trying to influence them. One supports them whatever way that we can. But yeah, I do take. I mean, we're going on a little journey to Nepal
Oh, nice.
over Christmas.
Oh,
You
that's
know,
lovely.
my lovely wife, she has been in charge of family holidays for the most part,
So
and
now
I
it's
thought
your
it's
turn.
about first world glitzy places and
Yeah.
all the rest of it, Dubai,
Yeah.
New York, Disney.
Yeah.
I thought it's about time these kids need to see a little bit of the third world. So we're going off to remote part of Nepal to live with Sherpa people, and they will see how the majority of the rest of the world live, and hopefully that will be a good experience, a positive experience for them to realise one, how lucky they are
Yeah.
to be born in the UK and to go to a good school and to have a great education and so forth.
I mean, back to your businesses, is there any particular of your current projects that you enjoy more than another, or is it all kind of interconnected? And
Yeah, I mean, if I'm honest, James, my passion is adventure and expeditions and putting things together, and every waking moment I'm thinking, where can I go next to have an adventure with some good people? But for me, the business side is more a means to an end. I mean, I do enjoy the entrepreneurial aspect of running a business or businesses. With its challenges and its rewards, but I'd rather be on a mountain than at my desk on a computer sending out emails, if I'm honest.
fair enough. I think you once said to me, I mean, you've had some amazing success in the business world. You've built businesses, you've sold them, but I think once you said to me that you would prioritize fun over business. You could have, if you had focused on making more money, that could have been something that you would have ultimately succeeded in, because you seem to shine to anything you put your hand to. But you've prioritized experience, and then through that you've obviously built a great network of people. I mean, your book, you talk about some of the great folks that you've met along the way, and you've kind of been through thick and thin and some pretty tough experiences. So you've been able to use that energy. Would it be right in me saying you use that energy to kind of give you, I guess, I use the word agency, but something that kind of differentiates yourself, brings a bit more fun into your business life. Obviously, you're working to live opposed to living to work. I mean, there's a distinction. Can you comment on that at all?
I think that's about right. And one of the things, if I'm trying to encourage others to lead the best life that they want to lead, and I know people are restricted. There are difficulties, permission to go and do stuff or take a risk to start a new business, or people getting permission from the other half to disappear off to do a canoe trip or climb a mountain. I do appreciate that there are, difficulties and good excuses that people can come up with. But actually, at the end of the day, I'm really positive that if something is really important to you, don't compromise. Don't be bullied off that aspirational goal, that thing that you really want to achieve, because you'll only regret it when you're 70, 80 in your slippers and on your deathbed. Just have no regrets. Don't compromise. Somebody once said, something that's really important to you, make it non-negotiable. Find a way, like, for example, I had this big challenge when in my 20s of 7 summits, climbing the highest mountain on each of the 7 continents. It was a big aspirational goal. Had no clue how I was going to do it, how I was going to fund it. And I had just started a construction business. Within 12 months of starting that very serious commitment with a business partner, I had the difficult task of going to the boardroom, booking some time with him and saying, Andrew, I'm really sorry, but I have to take 8 weeks off to climb Mount Everest because it's part of my 7 Summits Life Goal Challenge. And he looked at me rather blankly, thinking it was a couple of weeks off. And I said, no, it's 3, it can be up to 3 months off work. And this was 12 months into our, long-standing commitment to create a viable, decent-sized construction business. He swallowed hard and said, all right, if you must. So I found a way, you know, even when it was difficult, you know, we were 50-50 partners, to literally take 8 weeks off, 9 weeks off. And then when I came back, failed the first time in the mid-90s, big disastrous storm on Everest, failed to climb the mountain. I still had had to go back and do it, you know. Resilience, as we talked about before, go back and try again. So 2 years later, I had to have the same conversation. By which point he was getting pretty pissed off, to be fair. But it didn't stop me, or it didn't stop him from, you know, ultimately giving me permission.
So the storm that you talk about, is that when there was a lot of fatalities on the top of Everest?
Yeah, it was a very sad and difficult year. 96, the year that Into Thin Air was written. John Krakauer, numerous films were made about the disastrous storm, you know, the worst in 100 years on the mountain. And I just happened to be the right place at the wrong time.
Yeah. How's that impacted you? I mean, obviously, you didn't give up on your dream of summiting Everest, and, you know, you carried on to, you know, pursue the 7-peak challenge.
Sure.
So obviously, from a business standpoint, you were 12 months into a business. You went and did. You know, your heart was saying this is the right thing to do. You did it. Coming back from that experience, did it help propel? I mean, it was that was clearly a very heartbreaking, tough time. Could you use that as strength to kind of move forward? I mean, is that...
What an interesting question.
I'm just trying to...
Absolutely,
yeah.
what a fascinating question, because, yes, I was absent from the business. You know, we were a small team in the mid-90s, I don't know, 10, 15 strong. And so my absence supposedly would have been noticed. As it happens, you know, we were on a growth trajectory, and okay, maybe if I had been there instead of climbing Everest, we might have won 1 or 2 more deals in that time. Who knows? But they had a really good quarter, the best quarter, you know, whilst I was away, and I got a bit of piss take from that stat. But actually, your bigger point. When I came back, I was a better person. I was a more rounded person. I was a more confident person. I had more self-esteem. I had built some new, interesting connections. Not only that,
you grew as a person.
I grew as a person. And how did that actually help the business? Well, it helped the business because as a salesman, you need all of those qualities: self-esteem, confidence, you know, skills learnt, new contacts made, in order to succeed in your commercial role. And not only that, you know, in a competitive environment of construction, where we were pitching and bidding for contracts, when you were lined up with a whole bunch of, you know, client executives facing you, architects, project managers, what kept coming back was, towards the end of the meetings normally, oh, I hear, Neil, you've read somewhere that you've climbed Everest. Do tell us about that. And they would, you know, have a conversation about Everest rather than what type of concrete we'd use in the build. And I think it was because, you know, I was perhaps a slightly more interesting person than the next team that came in, contributed to, you know, winning the odd extra contract and deal and helping us grow as a business.
I mean, to unpack that a little bit, you've got crazy adversity with what happened. You've got something that you were passionate about. You pursued it anyway, despite the fact the timing of it was not optimal. You obviously had a supportive co-founder or boss or whatever to actually enable you to actually do it. You would have done, I'm sure you would have done partner. You would have done it anyway. And then, like you said, you were more interesting. You know, you grew through the adversity. You kind of grew.
Yeah.
And it just makes you more interesting. So actually, the more fun things you do, the more experiences you do, you can tell a good story. I mean, you're full of them.
Sure. Yeah. Well, it comes back to the, what would have happened if my business partner had said no? Well, probably we would have fallen out, and, you know, that no compromise, that, non-negotiable aspect to what I had set in stone would ultimately have won through, I think, if you're a strong enough character. And what I'm suggesting your listeners do, if you're really passionate about something, you really want to do it, you'll find a way, but there are risks. I probably would have fallen out of with my business partner, and I would have left the business, and I would have set up on my own somewhere else.
I think
You have to have that level of confidence and commitment to actually, just step out of your comfort zone and make it happen.
It's actually, I mean, it's kind of sparked something in me. So in 2012, I was involved with a business that didn't work out. My wife wasn't very happy, and I said to one Sunday morning, I said to my wife, "Why don't we sell everything? I'll shut down the business. Why don't we sell everything and travel around the world?" This little switch came on, her eyes lit up, and I was like, "That's the woman I married. Let's do it." So I basically sold 95% of everything I owned, and to finance the trip was the only way to do it. But I met a lot of people along the way, after similar. I mean, just it's my experience, my life experience. Said, I wish I could travel around the world. It's like, well, you can. Yeah. If you're willing to sell your house and sell 95%, you can. So it's just a rut story. Sure. But I think you just highlight the point that you're always going to get naysayers. I mean, people thought I was absolutely completely crazy and irresponsible and reckless and all the rest of it because I had a family. But actually, if you have that conviction, like you said, you can find a way. And you know what? If you're in a company or if you're an employee and they don't agree with it, or if you have a business partner and they don't agree with it, you're almost better off just to cut ties and do it. Just follow your heart, follow your gut.
I would just like to add one thing, because I'm sure there's people listening to that going,
"That's crazy."
Well, I'm not a business partner. I don't have a house to sell.
Yeah.
And all I would say is the majority of the I'd like to think interesting stories in my book involved quite a lot of money to get to Antarctica, to climb the highest mountain in Antarctica, cost a shed load of money, which I didn't have, to build the world's first road legal flying car, Chapter 3.
£350,000.
I didn't have that kind of spare cash, even though I was reasonably successful sales guy in my own business. We were a small business. We were on a modest salary, etc., etc. I didn't have that kind of money, but I committed to the project because I was passionate about it, and I found other people to pay for my adventure. And if you've got a great idea, and you're passionate about it, you will find, if you apply the sort of the adventurous mindset, you'll find a way to get somebody else to pay for it.
I think actually another thing that you kind of another highlights the point. If you commit on a direction, you're going to attract the right people at the right time to kind of align with what you want to do. I mean, I'm a big believer in that.
Sure.
Because you can feel the energy and the excitement. People love to feel that energy.
Yeah.
And if you're doing something new that hasn't been done before, it's a bit interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Even if people think you're absolutely crazy, you create that energy, but you will attract the right resources and the right people. And then obviously you've done that in spades on over and over and over and over again, and I'm sure it's going to continue. Well, I know it's going to continue.
Well, let's give let's give the readers an example of a crazy idea that attracts. And so there's where I live in Sussex, we used to have a big charity event called Paddle Round the Pier, and on the Sunday there was always a paddle something unusual, which gave great opportunities for creative inventiveness, ingenuity of floating contraptions. And one year I did it with a snake's worth of floating baths with flotation devices. We came last in the race, and then a few years later, I was inspired, having a seafood pizza in a restaurant on the seafront, to design and build the world's first 10-foot diameter pizza raft. Wow. Right? And it was essentially built from 2 Canadian canoes with wooden construction in between, with a 10-foot diameter pizza made of wood, a few food scraps, and a picture of a seafood pizza in a laminated cover. And this contraption we launched into the surf at Paddle Round the Pier, something unusual on the Sunday, and we were going really well. I mean, first of all, I attracted a decent team of friends to join me, and even my younger sort of 9-10-year-old children put a life jacket on and grabbed a paddle and joined us on this what was going to be a glorious victory finally at the Paddle Round the Pier. Well, we launched. We were 10 meters ahead of the crowd. And then a rogue wave came in, and I'd forgotten to provide cover from the open canoe sections. And this wave swamped us, and we literally sank. And all I could hear was about 5,000 people on the beach 100 yards away going, "Save the children!"
Very good, very good. That's completely mad. It's mad.
But, that was a silly idea, which with enthusiasm, with energy, curiosity, a little bit of courage, resourcefulness and resilience, having done it a few times before and come last, we launched, and you attract people, and yeah, it's exactly following to your point. When you come up with an interesting idea, another one would be the world's highest black tie dinner party, which was fabulous, super fun, a good decent challenge, 23,000 feet on up Mount Everest, and having the world's highest black tie dinner party, and raised a shed load of money for charity.
You've done a lot of work for charity, and I think that's another amazing quality. You've actually, can you talk a bit about that and how that's been a big part of your life?
I think it's important to, whilst you're having challenge and going out and doing these things with good friends and community, and having fun whilst doing it. Of course, those three principles that I live by. I think it's also important to do the right thing. One, particularly nowadays, we're sensitive to not making an adverse impact on the environment, which is very important, say sustainability, and doing good. And, one way of paying back whilst doing these amazing, fun, challenging adventures and expeditions is to actually have a nominated charitable cause, or doing some good. And what I've tried to do over the last 35, 40 years doing these madcap schemes and challenges is to align the project with a good cause. Mm-hmm. And it's given me an awful lot of pleasure giving back, raising money, creating awareness for some great causes. And there are many out there. I've no idea how many charities there are in the UK, but it must run into the millions. So there's plenty of ways that you can help others whilst you're doing your thing. And I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be a good subsidiary aim on each of these projects. And the next big mission I've got next year to northwest Nepal is to try and extract from the Germans, who currently own the Guinness World Record for the highest bicycle ride. We'll be, and I have been, so we did one attempt 2 years ago, which failed, have to go back and have another go at this record. But we've been raising money for a really desperately poor school in the region, literally at the base of the mountain that we're about to climb. And 2 years ago, they didn't have light and electricity in their school classroom in this village. Now they do.
Okay.
Wow.
And we're going to go back and give them lots of computers and teach them how to use the internet, and give them the latest Starlink, Wi-Fi and all the rest of it, so they can communicate with the world and progress and get on a par with other schools in the rest of the world.
That's really nice. I think so many people kind of I forget where I heard the expression, it's kind of licking the earth, traveling around, but actually just being a fleeting, and not actually giving back to the communities that you might pass on your travels. And I think it's quite a nice story to actually,
Yeah, I love that. I can resonate with that a lot. Of raised in Southeast Asia, so yeah.
Well, this school, it's amazing. Not only were the classrooms dark because there was no electricity to them, but 4,500 meters up in Nepal, blinking cold.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And
wow.
there's no insulation. The kids, they're at a wooden table. They sit on the floor. It's like a awful little tiny mat that they sit on. But the earth is freezing. Yeah. The walls are cold. There's no insulation at all. And not only that, there's no windows. And if there is a window, it's just wooden bars, open to the elements. Absolutely miserable conditions in which to try and learn your maths and English and Nepalese and all the rest of it.
Do you want to talk to us a little bit more about some of your favorite adventures in the book?
So the book is called Adventureholic. subtitle Extraordinary Journeys Around the World on 7 continents by land, sea and air. It's really just a compilation, a smorgasbord of adventure, and literally all around the world from each and every continent, cold, hot, sweaty, and so forth. And the best trips that I've organised and led, mostly, with a few interesting examples. So we talked about the flying car. So there's chapters on climbing mountains, crossing deserts, paddleboarding around remote islands in the Pacific and up and down the Amazon. There's hopefully something for everybody in there. I try and it's definitely a really honest account of some of those fun and challenging trips. There's 6 different Everest expeditions of different types, including obviously climbing, the dinner parties, and a couple with Bear Grylls where we attempted to fly over Everest in a motorized parachute. And there's lots of adventure, lots of good, interesting learning from as a human, but as a leader and as a team player, what's important. And I certainly cover not just the successes, but a lot of the failures and the reasons why, what I've learned and why I made some mistakes. And the last couple of chapters are a bit of fun. So one is called Mad Dogs and Englishmen, where we talk about the slightly more bizarre challenges.
I haven't got to that part yet. I'm still
riding a penny farthing from Land's End to John O'Groats, or the highest black tie dinner party on Everest, or stuff like that. And then the final chapter is called 9 Lives and How I Lost Them, and that's short little stories, vignette stories about why I shouldn't really be here on this sofa chatting to you, but buried under 6 feet of earth, but managed to get away with it. Partly due to luck, partly due to good decision making, and hopefully a little bit of experience thrown in to avoid the inevitable.
I think you talk a little bit the importance of preparedness, and I think the preparedness piece has definitely saved your life on a number of occasions from where I've got to up in the book. And I will say that Bear Grylls wrote a really lovely foreword in the book, and I think he describes you as standing on the shoulder of a giant. So very complimentary,
very generous.
But I think, as much as you love to share about your stories, I think there is a humility about you, and you've certainly, you've made a big impact on a lot of really great people and had lots of adventures. So
I think anybody in my position would be able to do that. We talked about the bringing people towards you with inspiring others to join a cause, and I think if you have some of those characteristics of the adventurous mindset, you will inevitably attract people to your cause, and hopefully, as long as you're a nice person, you're not an arsehole, they will remain friends, as Bear has for a quarter of a century since we sat on the summit of Everest. And it would be difficult. There's a couple of people that one can't be friends with everybody. I've upset somewhere along the line. Again, it's all in the book. They probably won't be too happy, but it's an honest account of where it went wrong, and you can't get it right the whole time.
Yeah, I think it's also you go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated, and you're not going to get on with everybody anyway. But and you're going to attract the right people into your life. So I think it's. I think if you can count all your friends on one hand, you've done well, haven't you?
Well, I've got a birthday party coming up, and I think 80 are coming. So
okay, there you go.
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm happy.
That's really good.
Bear Grylls, he's one of your good friends. What's he like away from the cameras?
Yeah, so Bear's a very old friend, loyal friend. He, he's an amazing man. He's achieved so much, but he's really humble, I think, and a real family man, but also focused. He knew what he wanted. And he found a way to live the best life that he wanted to lead. I remember him saying to me on Everest that, he was doing a Spanish degree at university at the time and not really enjoying it. And he had a vision. But, interesting, I did not know that he was preparing to write a book. So that book pretty much launched his career. But it was a secret. He kept it a secret, but he was focused. Prepared, was making notes, and wrote that book, and that launched his career.
Who's more of the leader when you guys go out?
Well, I mean, he was 23 when and I was 32 when I organised and led that second Everest expedition. So nominally I was the team leader, but no, I mean he's become hugely influential and a consummate leader in his own right, obviously.
Have you done any of the worm insects eating to survive at all? Or
Yeah, to be honest, I did. There's a few people I sent an early draft to. One of course was Bear, because he's obviously in the public eye, and having known him for nearly 30 years, there are definitely some stories that I could have shared and actually wanted to share originally. But on reading the first draft, he did ask me to take a few of the stories out,
Take it out.
mostly when he was, appearing naked and stuff. But he follows the same. He likes to have fun. Occasionally, likes to shock. But he's a fundamentally fabulous, wonderful human being.
For those who want to go out on adventures, be it small, medium, or large sized, what are the fundamental things that you need to be prepared for? So obviously there's finances, equipment, and stuff like that. But if you could,
so I think preparation is vitally important, and each challenge is different, requires different elements to it. But the fundamentals of course, do you have a clear goal? Do you have a clear vision of what you're trying to achieve? That's really important, I think. Then the people, who's going to join you on this crusade or this project or this company or this adventure, I think is the next most important. Then really thinking about the strategic plan of what you're going to do, how you're going to execute, without being too restrictive. There has to be an element, I think, of give and take and flexibility in the plan. Otherwise, it's a package holiday. So I kind of, it's an interesting thing that comes actually with a lot of experience. I think people with maybe lacking or first timers maybe overthink the preparation, planning, training. Sometimes it's just a question of getting the basics in place and then following your gut, making good decisions on the hoof. And just following your nose. I've got a little tip for you. So when I'm facing a tricky or difficult challenge in my life and I want to try and improve the chances of success, I use an acrostic word called VISTA. Now, VISTA in the dictionary stands for a pleasing view or ambition. And the acrostic word VISTA stands for the following. V is for vision. So this is what's your goal? Really focus on what it is you're trying to achieve. I is innovation. What sprinkle of magic can you bring to the party that's going to be different? The S is for strategy. And that's essentially what's your plan to achieve success in a project or program. T is for team, and who are you going to be involving in this challenge, and how are they going to help you? And finally, A is for attitude, and how can I bring a little bit of stardust, some energy, some enthusiasm, positivity to the project or program. And there is VISTA in a nutshell. A really good acrostic word that reminds you of the real principles for success. And one quick example. So many years ago, I was invited to something a bit wacky and weird. It was the world's tin tray racing championship, essentially sliding down an Olympic bobsleigh track on a tin tray. We have to turn up with a tin tray. So I was staying at this hotel and I went into the kitchens and asked the head chef, could I borrow your tray? Because I was going for this, entering this World Tin Tray Racing Championships up in the snowy part of the mountain. And my little bit of innovation was asking, how can I make it slippery? And so he gave me some olive oil, I think, and I would just, before going down the ice, I would sprinkle a bit of olive oil on the bottom of my tin tray to make it even faster. So I had some strategy. It was basically avoiding the sides of the Olympic bobsleigh track, because obviously as you bash into the walls, it slows you down. In terms of team, it was really a singular event, but I'd never done this thing before, so I recruited somebody who'd done it before and asked them, if they'd be my coach and give me some tips. And then finally, like most things in my life, I just gave it the beans, learnt from my mistakes on the practice runs, and then when the competition came about, I put all of those things together, real clear vision. I wanted to get on the podium, sprinkled my bit of innovation, had my strategies in place, had my coach giving me final last-minute tips for the run, and then giving it full positive attitude. And guess what? I won the gold medal.
And you're not always going to have, there's going to be lots of gaps in your plan because you're doing something new. So, you've almost got to go with, but knowing what you want to do, but just...
Yeah, but having flexibility to pivot, to go west instead of east.
When to jump ship.
Yeah.
It's like if things get bad.
No, absolutely. Absolutely making those critical decisions. When you mentioned Bering Sea, where we were attempting to cross the Bering Sea in winter, not many people had done it for very good reasons. It's very difficult.
That was sticky.
And quite dangerous. Yeah, I mean, we set off in the dark, across to one of the Diomede Islands from northwest Alaska, trying to reach the international dateline in the middle of the Bering Sea. And we were expecting, midwinter, February 2016, icebergs and an ice pack, an ice flow in the strait, as was normal in winter. We paddled on our 9-foot red kayaks, James and I, expecting to paddle for 10 minutes before we found the ice pack. And then the plan was to use our ice axes, haul ourselves and our gear and canoe up onto the ice floe, and then speed march and walk and haul our gear to the island.
And then play football with the Russian.
Yeah, well,
military.
that was a subsidiary aim to invite the Russians to a game of football.
Goal.
Basically, the idea was the international dateline would be the halfway line of the football match. Okay. So my idea was that we would be playing the game against the Russians on Saturday, and of course they'd be playing on Friday. Yeah. The same game. Anyway, it never happened because we paddled for 15 hours. That first day from 5 a.m.
It's bad
till late into the night without finding any ice, and transpired that it was up until probably this year. It was 2016 was the warmest winter and year on record in the world, and there was no ice. It had all melted. It wasn't there. So, our plan was flawed. And coming back to the original question, I realised we were in deep trouble because the ice pack obviously travels a lot slower than fast-moving torrents of water with the current that goes through the Bering Sea, which essentially heads north towards the North Pole. And on a 9-foot kayak, you've got no chance, And then eventually, actually, the sea around us literally froze, and so it was checkmate. You couldn't paddle because you can't paddle a kayak through half an inch of ice. But half an inch of ice is not strong enough to withstand the weight of a human with luggage. So it was checkmate, and I had to make a really tough decision to pick up the satellite phone and call for help. Yeah. And a day after we set off on this challenge, I was pulling the plug, calling it quits, and asking for help. Yeah. And the US Coast Guard kindly came to rescue us with their 2 helicopters. So. Yeah, tail between the legs, but it was as a result of making a good.
You had a sat phone.
Good decision when it was clear to me that we were in deep trouble, and doing it early.
Do you have any advice for people? Maybe say they're going on their first adventure and then they have a really, really sticky situation. Do you have any sayings, phrases, just things to remember that can help?
Go with your gut. People's gut instinct is hugely intuitive. Yeah. And, you know, when you get the hairs on the back of your neck going big time, there's just reflect on what you're doing and how you're doing it, and maybe
Intuition,
have a step back and have a think, and then just try and make just sensible, good decisions. Not play it safe the whole time, because sometimes you have to step forward out of your comfort zone, take a risk. But
Responsible.
the cold light of day, you know, if something doesn't feel right, or just you're not getting a great sense that it's a good decision, then there's no shame in backing off and going again the next day.
Trust your intuition. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you also talk about in the book, you know, surround yourself with, get the right experts. You know, there's people with the knowledge. You know, when you don't have the knowledge,
100%,
find someone that
absolutely.
does.
Well, that comes back to the selecting the team, of course. You know, a good example would be the flying car trip across the Sahara Desert. You know, I wasn't hugely experienced, but you know, in deserts per se. But I persuaded a friend of mine to come and join me on this 10,000 kilometre journey from London to Timbuktu in a flying car, who was a desert specialist. So he loved the concept of supporting a flying car, and gave up 6 weeks of his time to come on the journey. And I raised the money to help pay for it, but you know, even so, he came as a volunteer, wasn't paid, and I had two mechanics on the trip, so that when vehicles and stuff, I have no clue about how an engine works, but I had two people on the team who could fix stuff, and so on and so forth. Everywhere where I was weak in terms of a skill set that was required for a particular challenge, mission, expedition, I go look for it.
Get a wingman or woman to kind of fill in the gap.
But it was quite amusing. On the flying car, I was trying really hard to find a qualified doctor, because I had this vision of me, you know, the engine stalling at 2,000 feet and then ploughing into a massive Saharan sand dune and requiring my broken bones to be fixed on site. And so it was quite important to me at the time, 2009, this expedition was, that I found a doctor, but I couldn't persuade a doctor. I tried really hard, spent 2 years searching for a doctor to volunteer to join us on this amazing mission. Couldn't find one. They all kept saying to me it's far too dangerous. And indeed, Ranulph Fiennes said this mad, bad and dangerous enough, this mission, for me to put my name to it as a patron, which he did.
Oh, he did,
kindly.
didn't he? Wow.
But at the end, I managed to hoodwink a trainee doctor to come on the trip, and he was put into action the very first day when we left a 5-star hotel in London, and one of my mechanics slipped climbing into his truck and gashed his leg.
In London?
In London, yeah, on a 5-star, in the courtyard of a 5-star hotel, and he had a gashed leg and exposed bone, and
that sounds awful.
The poor trainee doctor was put immediately, before we'd even left the start line. He was put to test, stitching up my my mechanic friend.
Yeah.
So the moral of this story is, if you have a cool enough idea, then you're gonna attract people for free to back you on your project. No, I'm just kidding.
No, but that's exactly right.
And actually, that is cool in itself, isn't it? It's like you don't, because people give themselves a lot of excuses why not to do things. You know, and they either get the naysayers to convince them, or they convince themselves to not do it for probably good reason. But actually, they're all rat stories, aren't they?
Yeah.
If you have the conviction, then just go ahead and do it.
I think you're talking about bluffing it a bit, James, aren't you?
Winging it.
Winging it.
Yeah.
That's great.
Something to be said for that as well.
Do you ever go out on your own, or are you completely against that? Don't go out on these.
No, I mean, I train on my own, but I prefer company. I'm a social being. I prefer sharing these journeys and these challenges and these expeditions with others, and you know, it's always, you know, a variety of people. It's not always the same crowd. And so, you know, I'm expanding my network, my friendships. And, you know, the other thing to say is, when you do these amazing journeys, you make the most fantastic friends, and, you know, proper friends, not just the transient online community that one builds up. You know, all the people, you know, people on my Facebook, LinkedIn, I've not met 90% of them. Are they friends? Are they really friends? No, not really. They're just a number. And a face with a profile. They're not proper true friends. True friends, when you go and climb a mountain a paddleboard down the Amazon, these people become your friends. Because you rely on them, you build
connecting with
trust,
them, yeah.
you have friendships, you drink beer afterwards.
I think that's also another. You touched on something that's really key. I mean,
We're touching you a lot, James, aren't we?
No, yeah. People aren't connected in this cyber world. You know, they've got their screens.
Well,
but I think
there is a connection, but I think what you're suggesting,
Different type.
following my comment there, is that they're not your real human connections.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the online tools they're tools, and you know, it's amazing how fast information can get around the world, and there's definitely there's lots of advantages of obviously technology, but I think like what you're saying is if you put yourself out there, have new experiences, bring great people together, then you're going to form bonds with people that you wouldn't otherwise form. It makes you more interesting, it makes you more resilient because you're always growing. I mean, I always love the idea of always pushing your comfort zone, but to actually think it and actually do it are two different things. So it's like if you put yourself out there, you're gonna get a lot back. Whether it's friendships or just give you more agency.
Here we are talking again. After I put you through a miserable 24 hours of pain and misery in a forest in Sussex.
It's terrible.
-2 degrees of an ice bath for 2 minutes, and then followed by walking on hot coals. And here we are, still friends and talking and chatting. And you even splashed out and bought me a coffee this morning.
Yeah, and I bought your book too.
Oh, you're generous.
Which actually would be great to get it signed today, if that's all right.
Sure.
Raising money to do these things. Do you have any advice on doing that?
Yeah, it's don't give up. It's never easy. Yeah. You'll get a lot of people saying no, but my main piece of advice is think really strategically about who, first of all, in your network. Very rarely have I found people to support financially a project that doesn't have a human connection to you. It's invariably somebody that you know in your network, or it's somebody quite close to somebody you know in your network that is the catalyst to a successful outcome. You have to look hard from within and within your circle of influence, so to speak. That's the first tip. The second tip I would suggest is that try and think who would be a good fit for this project. So, for example, the highest dinner party in the world, I went to Thomas Pink, the outfitters, and said, look, we're doing this project. I need some black tie suits, including for my Sherpa team, and I wanted to include my Sherpa team in the highest dinner party. They'd never worn a suit in their life, let alone a black tie. But got the dimensions of the team, normally about 5.5 foot, but they were decked out in their finery.
Did they get to keep them?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. So Thomas Pink, we're really happy, given that situation, to supply us with dicky bows and so forth. And then clearly, I went to the drinks manufacturers. Taylor's Port provided us with free port and sponsorship. Pernod Ricard, the champagne house, provided us with sponsorship and champagne, and so on and so forth. And so, try and think of an appropriate connection.
Yeah.
Why an organisation with money, as opposed to you with the good idea of no money, would want to support and look for those connections. That's the second thing. And then finally, ask for the right amount. You've got to do a little bit of research. You've got to be sometimes bold and sometimes brave and courageous to ask for money, particularly the right sort of money. So many examples of, I've done that in the past, and there's a lovely one in the book where I literally, for the flying car, I was 100 grand short and running out of time. And I spoke to lots of friends, trying to bridge the gap, and I was just not finding the opportunity. And then
Christine.
Christine was introduced to me over lunch at a very expensive restaurant. And I did my pitch, and she said, well, I love the idea of a flying car. Come and see me at my office next Tuesday, 11 o'clock. So I turned up at her office. I walked into this office. It was cheap partitions, unlike your lovely fancy glass ones here. Cheap furniture in this little box room. And I thought, oh, they're not going to be able to afford 100 grand. But she came in. She cut to the chase pretty quickly. No, chit chats.
Yeah.
Thanked me for the lunch, but said, great, how much do you need? So I took a deep breath and I was honest. I just said, I'm short of 100 grand. She said, without drawing breath, she said, come round the corner, I'll introduce you to my financial director and we'll write you a check. And I left the building with a 100 grand check. Can you believe that? So if you've got to be, got to be bold, you've got to use your contacts. And that was through a good friend of mine who I met recently this week, actually. Had to buy him another drink as a thank you because he remembers the introduction. And I asked for the right amount.
Right, good advice.
And another lovely little story of actually failure, but it was a good lesson with regards to that. It was the Shackleton Memorial Expedition that I was trying to raise money for, and it was quite expensive, similar sort of 300 odd grand figure to put a team of 12 into Antarctica and do some sailing and do a sort of cross South Georgia like Shackleton did back in the day. And I was short of a lot of money, and I wrote to an American firm I'd been introduced to, who apparently loved Shackleton, Scott, Antarctic, would support missions like that, modern expeditions. And I wrote to them formal letter, my pitch, and I asked for a whopping £50,000. 2 weeks later, I got a letter back from the company saying, "Love your project, but unfortunately, we only support big projects, 5 million and above." So my 50 grand was like a pittance. It was too small. So you've got to do your research and work out what the relevant amount is suitable for the people you're approaching.
Wow. Yeah, that's great advice.
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to, bring it down to a micro level, because there might be somebody out there who is not happy, is unfulfilled, and just wondering what on earth they're doing on the planet and why they exist. And I would just simply say, try and find your passion, try and work out what it is that you really love to do, and then find a way to do it. Seeking help where necessary, guidance. Don't be afraid to ask for help and support, and to really go for it. And if a bloke like me with a really poor academic record, I was kicked out of school for various reasons. I struggled, have had many failures and difficult moments along the road. If I can be a guest on your podcast show, if I can write a book that's published, if I can achieve a few successes in life, honestly, anyone can.
Yeah. You say finding your passion, doing what you love, and that it doesn't necessarily have to be your career. That doesn't have to be your job. It's just keeping up and still doing the things that you love, regardless of if that's your main form of income, which is really important nowadays, because I know a lot of people my age, there's this whole thing about hobbies. So it's like, if you're not making money from your hobbies, then it's a waste of time, because you should be grinding. That is genuinely like the mindset,
which is wrong. It's the wrong. It's almost like capitalism's kind of built on lack, isn't it? It's like you're not complete unless you have this or that. But to have that expectation that you need to be making money all the time, it's not about money, is it? It's about just living and being in the present and having fun.
I would start with the fun, and often the fun and the passion stuff turns in. Look at my penny farthing club business. Yeah. I mean, that was just a bit of curiosity about how to whether I could ride a Victorian bicycle, and I discovered that I could. I attracted other people to join me. I taught loads of friends to ride. We started penny farthing polo, started researching world records, did a few of those, raised lots of money for charities, doing interesting, fun trips. Now I get invited to schools to talk about penny farthings. I get invited on films and commercial shoots. I get hired 3 inquiries yesterday for various things with a penny farthing that, it's little business,
And it just started from
little hobby business. Started with curiosity and the courage to step up and do something, take action, and then some of those other mindset things, energy and enthusiasm, resourcefulness and resilience, and that's all you need. But it doesn't have to be Mount Everest or climbing mountains. It doesn't have to be paddleboarding. It doesn't have to be adventure. It's just something that you're passionate about. Ultimately will end up helping you earn money, ironically, because you're enthusiastic, you're talented, you create skills, there's demand that's built up. Something you'd love to do, you will attract people commercially and otherwise to that enterprise, and you'll end up starting to make money.
Or it just makes you more interesting.
So start with fun, start with passion, and start with courage to take the first step.
And it might be, if you don't know what your passion is, you just try lots of different things until you find it. I mean, sometimes it's a journey, isn't it? You don't wake up one day and say, I'm passionate. I mean, it can take time to figure out what you're passionate about.
Yes.
What lights you up, what makes you happy.
Indeed.
Brilliant. If you could pick anyone that you would want to meet or have a coffee with and have a chat, who would that be?
Plenty of people. I'd love to meet Bob Geldof.
Okay.
He's achieved an awful lot. He's got a certain type of character, personality that intrigues me, and I'd love to, interrogate him over a coffee or probably a pint or 2 of beer. I'd love to meet, and I'm getting closer to stalking him. Is my favourite band, AC/DC.
Wow.
Brian Johnson is a drinker in a pub in Chiswick. I'm on his tail. I'd love to meet him, shake his hand.
Great.
I'm a great ex-rugby player and follower, and had the great privilege of shaking the hand of some famous people at a Centurions dinner last year, and that was a real thrill to meet some hardcore. I mean, rugby's a brilliant game, thug's game for gentlemen.
So how do people find you? Do you want to be found? Any project that you want to promote or need some help with, either through through Rocket Pod's network? But how do people get in touch?
If anyone would like to get in touch with me, I'm really open to new connections. As mentioned before, I prefer the FaceTiming, building of relationships and trust in real terms, not online. But it starts with a connection, doesn't it? So if anyone feels that they would like to get in touch with me, it'd be difficult not to find me on the internet. Neil Laughton, and I have a LinkedIn and Instagram, occasionally posting stuff. But if somebody wants to find me and meet me bad enough, they'll find a way.
They'll find a way. Okay. Well, we can put a bit of copy on our. We can put your LinkedIn connection, whatever it's called. Brilliant. Well, it's been a pleasure, Neil.
James, thank you as always.
It's been fun.
Lovely to see you.
It's been fun. We had some laughs, didn't we?
You're a good interviewer.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you, Neil. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Rocket Pod. When you get a moment, we'd love it if you could jump over to whatever podcast platform you're listening on, listen to Rocket Pod on and leave us a quick review. Please send us some messages, engage with us. We love it when you talk to us. It helps us get exposure to inspire and share more stories like this one with Neil today. I think Neil's attitude, growth, adventure mindset is refreshing. The fact that you can go the path less traveled, get out of your comfort zone, get out there into the world. I think Neil did talk about the acronym. He had VISTA, vision, have a vision, innovate, strategy, obviously plan your adventure. And if you start doing something, then be sure that you're going to get the right team around you to actually pull it off. And then developing that that growth mindset and having the right attitude to have fun. So yeah, thanks Neil for spending time with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. We learned a lot, and hopefully our listeners are going to have some tools to actually implement a bit more fun and adventure into their life. Anyway, take care, and we'll see you next time.